You can look this guy up. He's all over the news.
Worked with him for 5 years. Went to his house. He helped me pick up the parts for my first PC. Like, helped me work on my car.
Okay.
Like, was close with this guy. No idea.
I feel like this is going somewhere legit.
It is. So at work, he was our tech guy. He did our website. He managed our server. And all of a sudden, these people started coming in. And Jerry just told us, like, oh, yeah, they're helping Carly out with computer stuff. And we're like, okay, but they were always coming when Carly wasn't there. And we're like, oh, this is weird, but whatever. We'd let him in.
You've said his name twice now.
Oh, yeah. Oops. Oh, I don't really care.
I'll delete it. It's fine.
But,
proceed.
So
He can't sue you from jail. Don't worry about it.
Anything's possible.
So he
He
goes
can
on
get a degree in jail. He can probably sue me.
So he goes on vacation, and he told me that he's going to spend July 4th weekend with some of his buddies that he's in the Navy with, because he's in the Navy. Comes back. We're like, how was it? He's like, oh, it was great. It's exactly what I needed. And then 3 days later, he's like, oh, I have to go. My
In
grandmother
retrospect,
died.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I saw you. You get real expressive just then.
She does the same thing in poker. But 3 days later, he's like, oh, my grandmother died. I have to go. And so he left. He's like, I'll be gone for like a week, I think it was. Week goes by.
How many people have used that excuse? Oh, my granny died. I got to get out of here.
Terrible people. I'd never use that excuse. I loved my granny. But anyway,
Y'all had a good granny.
we did. She was wonderful.
Anyway,
we had
sorry.
two grannies.
You're fine. So a week goes by. He doesn't come back. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Finally, we call the owner. And we're like, hey, have you heard from Carly? He's not here. And he's like, I legally can't tell you anything, but Google his name.
This content is brought to you by NotGospelStudios.com.
So we Google his name. Turns out he had been being investigated by the FBI for a child sex trafficking ring and had been arrested trying to bring this, like, 14-year-old kid.
I'm not trying. He
No,
did.
he did, yeah. So it turns out he'd went to this kid's house on his vacation and picked him up and took him back to a hotel room and stayed with him for the entire week.
Oh,
In like
And then-
Texas. Took
then-
him out of California
yeah.
to Texas.
Then came back, and then that kid told him, like, hey, I want to come live with you. And so he drove back to that kid's house and was driving back to Kentucky to have that kid live with him when he was pulled over by the police and arrested. And those men we had been letting in, thinking that they were helping Carly, turns out they were undercover FBI, and they were copying the hard drives.
Oh, man.
It was wild. Worked with the guy for 5 years. Been to his house. Everything. No idea.
Why do you think, and I'm not saying this to degrade men or anything like that, but why do you think men are more likely to be pedophiles than women? Like, what is be attractive to a juvenile, you know?
I mean, real life answer for me.
Perverse.
Real life.
Yeah, but there's some perverse women too.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say on the grander scale.
Maybe
more
it's an
perverse
anatomic
men.
thing. Maybe so maybe there's a biological anatomic answer in the fact that how much. This sounds horrible, and I don't condone any of this, obviously. I mean, it's offensive. But the younger a man gets, the less likely he is to be able to satisfy a woman, if you understand what I'm saying. Just anatomically versus
Rising to the occasion, so to speak.
versus the younger, there are orifices at every age that men can do things in. So maybe there is an anatomic reason and then a spiritual reason, in my opinion. Men are also the ones who are typically doing the seduction or the courting, let's say, of women or of intimate partners. So they're used to approaching individuals for intimacy more so than women are. So maybe all of those are factors. I personally think primarily it's a major spiritual factor, in that men are more typically, by and large, more sexually driven. They have a much larger sex drive than women.
Do you think that?
Oh, 100%.
Science proves it. Men have a larger libido, a much larger sex drive. Matter of fact, typically they say that women only match men in sex drive when they reach their 35 to 40-year-old, because they're approaching the maximum time that they can have kids, so their body naturally is kicked into gear to have more sex.
Yeah.
And men are traditionally ramping down at that point.
Yeah, so it would even out.
So they're meeting in the middle, right?
But that's
But that means men have a really high sex drive and women are down, typically.
You're matching our sex drive when we're at our lowest and you're at your highest.
Well, but
Well, not lowest.
Yeah.
well, I'm wondering how
After,
much,
you know.
I'm just wondering how much of it is physical versus, men seem to tie sex to their ego and their own manliness and self-esteem and stuff, and how much of it is how they receive their emotional love. And so it's more than just a physical.
If you take away, this is something we talked about earlier. One of the reasons, and both of these are connected. One of the reasons why a woman who's got all of her stuff together, who's can provide for herself and all that kind of stuff, may not be as attractive to a man as someone who maybe hasn't got all their stuff together, as like a 22-year-old who's still figuring things out, is because men want to feel like they are the provider and protector, and that makes them feel good for the woman to be like, hey, they're taking care of me, they're providing for me. It's not a good feeling for a man when the woman's like, I could take you or leave you, I'm gonna be fine on my own, like I'm complete, I'm good.
That should be what a man wants. What anybody would want, I would say, two equals saying, "Oh, look, there's a well put together person."
Well, just like the sexual libido thing evens out, that also evens out in a relationship where you guys wind up old together, and it's like, what you have is the relationship you've built together, what you talk about, but you have these years of, I feel so much satisfaction as a provider and a caretaker, and I'm protecting and taking care of my family, including my wife. It's like this, a lot of men, not every man, but for a lot of men, that's a drive. That, in a way, kind of has to do with, if you take the spiritual thing out of it and you talk about pedophilia, the man you were talking about, the 14-year-old, I want to come live with you. It fulfills that need to be the provider, the caretaker. To me, it's despicable. It's awful. Obviously, this is human trafficking, molestation and child rape, I should say, because you can't say the other word. And kidnap. Technically. Yes. All those things.
Sorry, I forgot this part. He was literally pulled over. They caught him with his pants down in the car.
Lord.
That just sickens.
Yes, it's just so disturbed, and it's awful. To me, it's spiritual warfare going on. There's definitely a spiritual thing going on as a believer that's demonic influence, obviously. But if you take all that out, there's probably a lot of physiological things.
If you like this clip from the Not Gospel Studios channel, don't forget to share. Click on one of the other links and videos. You can find them here, and subscribe. I think it's down here. Tell your friends about us. Tell them that it's healthy, that it's vegan, and all of those things. Keep being awesome, because that's how God made you.